Breaking overnight, NASCAR says a noose was found in Bubba Wallace's garage. Wallace, of course, is the only top-tier black driver in NASCAR. And all eyes are on Talladega this afternoon as some fans return to the stands. The Confederate flag ban, of course, is in effect now. Joining us, CNN political commentator Angela Rye, the former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, and CNN political commentator Errol Lewis. He's a political anchor for Spectrum News. Good morning. Good to have both of you with us. To call the news disturbing, I think, is putting it mildly. When you wake up to this news that a noose was found in Bubba Wallace's garage. NASCAR saying, they've started an investigation. As our own Diane Gallagher reported, this area is restricted. You have to be credentialed to get in there. So, Angela, you would think that we could get an answer as to who was behind this pretty quickly.
Well, you would think that you could, unless there were people or several folks involved who didn't have an issue with the fact that the noose was hanging at all. I think the backdrop of this is that there have been 2 black men found within the last month hanging in public places, even in California. So a noose is particularly triggering. There's never a good time, but I think especially given the climate that we're facing right now, this is a huge problem.
Yeah, and it happens, Errol. I know NASCAR banned the Confederate flag and banned this kind of imagery on the request of Bubba Wallace. I mean, Bubba Wallace really pushed this, the one black driver in the top-tier circuit. But the Confederate flag was still around. It was flying overhead. Someone, flew a plane with it overhead. You can see the picture right there. It was outside the track as well. So, look, I mean, it's definitely still an issue for NASCAR, clearly, and that goes without saying, given that a noose was found at Bubba Wallace's garage.
Yeah, I don't think anybody expected this to be moved with the wave of a hand, that the edict comes down from NASCAR and all of the flags just disappear. I think we should all salute Bubba Wallace for taking on what he had to know was going to be a big institutional and cultural fight. And these things don't change overnight. And they don't change without some ugliness. And we're starting to see some of the ugliness. Now, hopefully this is as bad as it gets, and people kind of realize that what they actually love about NASCAR is not connected to this symbol of hatred, that they can come and enjoy the sport, be with each other, do their tailgating, the music, and everything else, without having to sort of cling to the thing. I mean, if somebody says to you on some level, somebody who enjoys the sport as much as you do, hey, you stepped on my foot, you poured some beer, in my lap. You say, I'm sorry, it won't happen again, and you move on. We only wish it could be that simple. People really cling to this particular symbol. There's been a lot of controversy, a lot of blood spilled around it. Hopefully, it won't go much further than this, John.
I think it's important, too, that we put up what Bubba Wallace had to say in all of this. So he tweeted out, today's despicable act of racism and hatred leaves me incredibly saddened and serves as a painful reminder of how much further we have to go as a society and how persistent we must be in the fight against racism. But he goes on to say, this will not break me. I will not give in, nor will I back down. I will continue to proudly stand for what I believe in. It's so important to see that and to see the support that he's getting, and Angela, to talk about how he has forced this conversation upon a lot of people. And that's a lot of what needs to happen, too, as we continue moving forward to become anti-racist and to talk about not just the painful history, but the painful reality in this country on a daily basis.
Yeah, I appreciate at least your word choice on 2 of the things that you mentioned. One is how we become anti-racist, and it is going to take a very deliberate effort because we know this country was built on a system of oppression and systemic racism, white supremacy. So in order to tear down all of that, you have to uproot a lot of what is this country's foundation. That is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. The ways in which so many of us are uncomfortable every single day. I say all the time, I refuse to be uncomfortable any longer so that you can be comfortable. What that probably means is that as a collective, we have to work towards making each other uncomfortable, stretching each other out of our comfort zones so that the right thing can be done. The fact that a symbol of hatred could result in another symbol of hatred, put so close to his personal property is damning, and it's so clear that we have a lot of work to do to undo some of what you talked about as anti-racist.
Look, it's dangerous also and threatening, period, full stop.
Absolutely.
It just completely is. Errol, you're an icon in New York City. And this morning, we woke up to the news that the mayor the city has agreed to remove the statue of Theodore Roosevelt. We're looking at it right now. That's outside the Museum of Natural History here on the Upper West Side. Now, just so people know the context here, they're not removing everything about Teddy Roosevelt from the museum. They're removing this statue, which has been under discussion actually for a few years because there are people who find the statue itself offensive. You can see the depiction right there. It's Teddy Roosevelt up exalted on a horse with an African man and also a Native American sort of subjugated, guiding him through. Talk to me about the significance of this move, because some people are looking at this saying, oh, they're going after Teddy Roosevelt now. It's proof they're going too far.
Yeah, look, there's a lively debate going on all throughout New York City about different statues, what's there, what's not there, what should be there. There are very, very few, for example, of any women anywhere in New York City. It's been a very fraught discussion, and this is going to be one more round in that discussion where, I've seen that statue, and like most statues, you kind of have to be there to see it, but it's really, really big. And almost every public school kid at one point or another is taken to that Museum of Natural History. So it gets a lot of exposure, very wide exposure. I never felt particularly oppressed or impressed by it. Frankly, there's a lot of wonderful stuff inside the museum that I remember. The guy on the horse out front is kind of like, whatever. Now, there are some people who have reacted very differently, and we are now having this discussion about which symbols stay, which symbols go. This one, I think, was probably destined to be one of the first ones because everybody knows it, everybody has seen it. Everybody knows it's pretty blunt. It's not really subtle as far as what's going on, what's being depicted there. And so I think it's probably going to go. I don't know if they're planning to replace it. That would be yet another fight. And it becomes unfortunate in a way that we subtract, but we don't move forward. If we decide what we don't like, but we can't figure out what we do like, it would be, in some ways, kind of a shame.
Errol Louis, Angela Rye, thanks for coming on this morning. Great talking to you both.
Thanks.